Hello, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Julie.
So now we're going to do a review of TrollFest by Trick or Treat Studios.
Yay.
And it's 3 to 6 players.
Yep.
45 minutes, ages 14 and up. And younger people can play it. I think even an 8-year-old could do it if they're independent readers and they have experience in gaming. But 10-year-olds.
That's a good point, yeah.
So this is a game that you are going to gather, you start out with a band. You'll be adding members. It's a set collection with some drafting in the beginning, kind of a race game because you want to complete all your concerts, hopefully before other people do, because you get bonus points. And then you compare your bands at the festival, end of round scoring. So I did say it's 3 to 6 players, but if you watch our How to Play and Playthrough, we show you our 2 to 6 player variant.
I like the way you
I should say our 2-player variant.
Yeah.
I think it works, and that's part of our review. We're going to talk about why is this game, at least I will, 3 to 6 players. Why didn't it have a 2-player version?
I didn't put anything about that.
Okay, well, that's all right. But you can watch our playthrough. So if you're thinking, I don't want to get this game because
It's just me and my partner.
because it's 3 to 6 players, we made it work for 2 players. And it's, again, that's why you're here. You'll find out about that in a moment. So let's go over a little bit how to play.
Okay.
So you have some starter musicians here, and it's random. None of them have any special powers, I would say abilities. You'll see on some musicians that you'll get later, the veteran musicians, that they could have energy, that's +2 energy, skill, and then you'll see one with charisma. Maybe I can get lucky here and get one with charisma.
Oh, no. It's a
Let me
little
see
pink
here.
heart.
Yeah, so this one has 1 charisma.
Yep.
You'll see the symbol here, there's different species. So this is a vampire, and it's male, and this one plays guitar. The name is just what it is. These are elves. That's what that symbol is. It's a male elf, plays keyboards, and it gives...
No, it's a female.
Oh, female. I'm sorry. Gives +1 charisma and +2 skill. But your starting cards, that everybody will start with one random singer. So I got a goblin,
Guitarist.
dwarf, guitarist, a troll, bass player.
And a drummer.
Oh, where do I have that there? So you start out with 4. And a goblin, another goblin, drummer. So why do the species matter? Because you can get bonus points if you have a band of all the same species. Kind of like you want to have a band that's all from Australia, like AC/DC, or all from the British invasion like the Who or the Stones.
Beatles.
Or the Beatles. But eventually, they added people of different nationalities later on in their careers. Also, you might want to have a band with all the same gender, like the Go-Go's being all female, or the Backstreet Boys being all males. So I'll explain those scoring in a minute, but right now I have 2 goblins, a dwarf, and a troll. So when you take say I'm yellow, and you go from city to city, if you're the first one to that city, you perform there, you place your marker there, and you would get 2 points for being the first one there. And then you get additional points. Say I was at 0. Everybody starts at 5, but I'd say I'd be at 7. And then if I have a dwarf, I get an additional point for having a dwarf. And then this location allows me to draw 4 action cards and pick one. Now we're going to start out with some of those, and I'm going to show you that right now, but I'm just going over the basic scoring. And then I would pick one of these. So for instance, this card, at the very end of the game, that's a festival card. So you don't use it until the very end, when everybody's done running around playing their concerts. You then do your final scoring. It's hidden scoring. So I'd add 3 energy to my band. And whoever has the most energy will get 8 victory points. Whoever's the second most will get 4 victory points. And then anybody in 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th place don't get any points. This one would be used at the festival as well. It breaks ties when scoring. This card, you're going to put on a light show, and so dragons, if you have the most dragons of different color, this can be 1 blue dragon if you didn't pick up the blue dragon token. So if you didn't have the token, this card acts as that. Now, this also scores 8 victory points at the end of the game if you have the most delight show with the most lights. And then there's cards that you play during the game, like this one here. Orc Virus. Due to curfew, no Tor token can be placed. When I say concert, it's really a Tor token. Can be placed in orc cities until the end of your next turn. So that's something. So a little bit of take that. So you know somebody with a band that has a lot of orcs. You might want to play that. Play this card to cancel it though. So let's say I play this card, and Julie can cancel. Oh, this card. I play this card, and Julie plays that to cancel my orc play. So there are a ton of cards. Like for instance, this card can act as, say I have another goblin here. Okay, that's a goblin, but I want to make this dwarf a goblin. At the end of the game, I can change my dwarf into a goblin. So at these locations, you'll be getting action cards, 1 of 4. And then over here, with the, as Dio would call it, the ward off evil sign, or the rock and roll sign. Dio is credited with starting that, and then it's supposed to be Gene Simmons. What a surprise. Gene Simmons got into an argument with him as to who did it first. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
The point is...
we say it's Dio, so...
this is where you get veteran musicians you can add to your band. And there'll be 7 face up off to the side here, and I'm not going to set it up for that. It wouldn't be on the board, obviously.
Right.
But you can't have dual musicians. So say here's my basics. So if I get this bass player, for instance, I can switch out my current bass player. And why would I do that? Because he's worth 2 energy. My basics aren't worth much. And this is another dwarf, so this is great. I get extra points when I go to dwarf cities. Mm-hmm. If I were to switch out this singer, for instance, and make my band all dwarves.
That's cool.
And then I get 3 points. So you're going to be going to the cities with the rock and roll sign to pick up veterans and adding to your band. And you can't have, unless you have an action card that allows you to have duels, like duos, like 2 singers or 2 guitarists, mm-hmm. You can only have 1 of each instrument.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Because some bands do have 2
right,
guitarists.
But you got to have an action card to allow you to do that. Okay. So eventually you're probably going to replace your basic cards. So you start out with 1 each, and then what's the drafting part of the very beginning of the game? Because I wanted to explain how the game plays for you to understand how the drafting works. So each player gets 4 veterans mm-hmm. and 4 action cards, and we'd switch. So, what did I do there?
I'm not sure, sweetheart.
There it is.
Okay.
Okay. So I look at these cards. I take one, keeping in mind that if I, for instance, get this drummer, I'm basically saying I'm replacing my basic drummer that I start with. So I take that, I pass it to Julie.
This is after we've already received our basic
right.
people?
We get our 4 basics. Julie keeps this person, then I get hers. We go back and forth until we end with 7 cards. And the last card is discarded. So we're going to start out with a mixture of action cards and veteran musicians, which might replace some of our basic musicians. Or if I get, for instance, a violin player, well, that's fine. It didn't replace my basic musician. Oh. I just added to my band. I added a 5th player. Now, what are these cards for? These are city cards. And this is used to place the groundhog. I don't know why they're doing that in the game. I guess it's simulating that sometimes being in a band, you feel like you're doing the same thing over again. So sure. you draw it, and the groundhog will start out in Murfakill.
Right up there, sweetie.
Up there. Whoever goes to that city where the groundhog is will get 5 bonus points. At the beginning of the game, everybody starts with 5. And there's a mechanic here. Everybody comes up the name of their band, so you'll see in the playthrough we have our name there, and then you vote for whoever has the best name. Now, why? Because that person will get an additional 10 points. Say everybody thought Julie's name was the best, she'd get 5 bonus points. The person to her left, though, goes first, so she would go last in exchange for that 5 extra points. So then I would go, and so once you determine who has the best band name, you draw to see where the groundhog goes, and then you pick your home city. I say I go here because, hey, I know the groundhog's there. Julie goes, well, I have a bunch of dwarves in my band. I want to be near where the dwarves are. And we put our tour bus there, or tour van, I don't know if it's a van or a bus.
I don't know.
And then you can move one location per turn. Now, what are these locations? Well, you get dragons there for every player -1. So if it's a 3-player game, there'd be 2 dragons there. If I pass through there, I get this for the end of the game. I'd get 5 points for the groundhog. And then if I'm the first one there, I get 2 points. In a 3-player game, you can the number of players that can go there is equal to the number of players -1. So only 2 players in a 3-player game can go to that city. So that means if I go there and Julie goes there eventually, and our son David, he wouldn't be able to go there if he was playing the white band markers. So he'd be locked out of there. Now he could stop there, but he can't do a tour there.
Okay.
All right. So I would have gotten 2 points for being the first one there, and then if I had any dwarves, I think I had 1 dwarf in that example. So my first turn, I went from 10 to 13.
Just like that.
The groundhog comes off, and then at the beginning of my next turn, I draw another card to see where it goes.
Okay. That's right.
And you can play your action cards, just follow the directions. Sometimes they break the rules. Like I said, there's cards that you want that you must save for the end. Because I put all the ones that we played with
At the top.
So this right here, you play during the game because it has the tour van on it, and these you save for the end of the game.
And that's where people might need a little extra help. Or like the little people,
there's a lot of
8 or
reading on some of
9-year-olds.
those cards. That's what I'm saying. It would have to be an 8-year-old that can read well.
Or they could team up with their
team
mom
up
or
with an
dad
adult.
or something.
So let me just show you the end of round scoring. Now there is a nice chart here. So once a player plays all their tour tokens, everybody else gets 1 more turn. So if I play my last one, I don't get another turn. Julie would have 1 more turn, and if our son David is playing, he would get another turn. And then we compare. So how are you doing the end of round scoring? Like I mentioned, you compare your skills. Whoever has the most energy gets 8, second place 4. Most charisma gets 8, second place 4, and then the skill. Then you compare the dragons, and some cards can modify that. And then you compare species. Whoever has the most diverse band will get 8 points. And whoever has second most diverse, 4 points. Authenticity, now this is where it simulates things like having an all-boy band. If you have a classic rock band, that means you didn't go for a ton of different musicians. Now why do you want a ton of different musicians? Because that's where you want to get those points when you visit cities that have the same species. It's like when the Beatles plays in London, they're going to have a bigger audience maybe than other parts of the world. Or when Kylie Minogue plays in Australia, she's going to have a bigger, because she's Australian, she's going to have a bigger following than she would in Brazil. Okay. Anyways, classic rock band. A band is classic rock if it contains no artist type other than a singer, drums, guitar, bass, and optionally keyboard. So if you kept your band small, you can get 8 points. If it's all male, 8, all female, 8. And if the artists are all from the same species, like an all vampire band, Julie was trying to go for that.
I did.
And in the game that we played, I had an all elf band. Now,
Yes, you did.
there is one rule here that you can miss that I have marked. When you do recruit a veteran from a city, you get an additional point. If the city is like a dwarf, if you recruit a dwarf from a dwarf city.
Okay.
So I don't think that happened during their game, even though I remember the rule.
So.
All right, so that is how to play, and it simulates a band going on tour, playing different. Forgot about this.
What's up?
If you use all your tour tokens, you get 5 bonus points. If you manage to get back to your city, your hometown, before the game ends, you'll get another 5 bonus points.
Oh, that's
Now, what are these here? These come up with some of the action cards, which we haven't seen yet.
I was going to say, have you figured those guys out? Okay.
All right, so when we do our reviews, we give our positives, negatives, and neutrals, and then we'll give our rating based on the BGG scale.
And I always get to go first.
All right, so here we go.
Here we go. All right. I think the theme is really cool. Being a wife of a musician and a mom of 2 musicians, this is just so right up our alley. It's just so much fun because it makes a lot of sense to me because I've lived this since I've known David. I mean, this is just crazy. And I met him through his oldest brother, and he was a musician. He was a drummer.
We could actually say we met at a bar.
We really did.
And I was, I don't want to say the ages, but my dad was a police officer.
So he was allowed to come
I was
into
able
the
to
bar.
go into the bars at age 13.
I did not meet him when he was 13. I'm telling you that right now, guys.
But our boys went to bars when they were age 10 and 12 because
Yep.
they've been playing music that long.
Yeah.
That's one reason why we moved here to Vegas is that we're all professional musicians.
Not me.
And our one son, the bass player, he's got a lot of gigs right now.
So this is why I thought this was just so perfect for me. I just loved it. I think the art on the cards is just so fun and so silly. The way they draw the different monsters, honey.
Oh, species. Or fantasy.
And it's just so fun, you know.
So that's a troll.
And thank goodness for my husband. I got confused a lot of who was which ones, but I stuck with what I knew, which was the vampires. But it's just, I mean, look at that. It's just, it's not scary. It's just fun and silly, and kids are not going to get scared of this, which is what I think is so great. It makes it really so much a family game. The playing time actually isn't too bad. Aside from, I know our video was kind of long, but David was also teaching it too. So, but if you play it without any of that, it really doesn't take long to play. I think that it's a really fun set collection game. David in the beginning mentioned race, and I, it's a race game, and I didn't even think about the racing part. I just thought, well, you're collecting your little band, so that's why I came up with that. The race part is if
you can use all your tour tokens before other people. Well, not only do you deny them points from visiting cities, but also that 5 bonus points.
And see, I didn't even think of that. And my last thing was, I like the components. They're pretty decent. They're fat, chunky wood.
Yeah, they're wood.
Fat, chunky wood pieces. And I kind of wish that they would have maybe put like a little...
they could have stamped them.
Yeah, that would have been like the extra stuff. But I think they're very nice. They're just fine for what they are, but they're nice and fun to hold. And the little groundhog is really nice to fun and hold. And but that was my thing. I look at it as from a mom point of view, I guess.
Well, a mom with children that you could have played this game with, and a mom of
a musician kids. Yeah. So what did you say, hon?
What did I say?
You probably said way more than I did.
I didn't say anything. All right, so it's a fun, easy to play set collection race game with a cool theme. When we saw this at Gamma in Reno, we were like, yeah, this looks like fun. And we were like happy to get a copy.
Yes, thank you so much, Trick or Treat Studios.
Right, so it has a cool drafting part in the beginning. You could have just dealt cards. It makes it a little bit more interesting to do the drafting. And the hidden scoring is what takes it a step above of it being just a predictable running around the board scoring.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm holding cards back, that are festival cards, makes it for an exciting ending.
Yeah, that's true.
So it has attractive art, is what Julia said. Now, it's quality wood, but it's weird pieces. Now, what I mean by that, it's kind of generic. I don't know why this is a tour token. Why is this shape a tour token? Okay.
They can't see it, sweetheart.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have it. It's just a weird shape. Why does this represent visiting a city? It's weird. Is it something that was already in the inventory of the manufacturer? Said, yeah, it looks like, let's just do that one. These are supposed to be dragons?
Yeah, that part I don't understand.
If you look top down, but it could also be a Christmas tree.
I just thought it was a star.
I don't know why they went with a groundhog. That's just weird. And then you got a boring meeple here for something.
And these two little yellow, they're yellow.
Yeah, I don't know what those are.
Plain things.
But, maybe the only piece that's kind of not generic.
The truck or bus.
The bus, right.
I like it. I like that the best.
But if you look at it this way, now, if you want to be really technical about it, the pieces, so they have obviously gas, right? But then why are they using ships with sails? So it's a little inconsistent. If you really wanted to stay with the fantasy theme, it shouldn't have been a wagon, but then they're playing electric instruments.
That's true.
But sometimes they're holding bones. So thematically, it's just a little weird. It's called anachronistic. It's all right. But that's why I say it's a neutral. It's not a deal breaker.
No.
It's just weird.
No, not at all.
Okay, so decent player interaction. There's some take that, but it's not so bad that oh, you just screwed me, I'm going to lose now.
Because I don't do take that games at all.
Because you can deny somebody. Let's say I go to this elf place, and our son David's been there, and then I go there, and Julie has a band with a lot of elves. Well, now she's not going to be able to get points at that. So you can do that, and plus there's some action cards. So it's not so like, oh, I'm going to mess you up so badly that someone's going to be hurt over it. But there's enough. So unlike other games where it's basically solo games, this is not a solo game. You are interacting with each other. All right, so species focus versus music genre. So what do I mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So it's a set collection by species. Now that does happen, has happened historically, okay? Like I said, there's bands that, the British invasion and things like that. Or you say there's baby metal is it's a metal, but it's also, what is that called?
Japan.
That's that style of music where the Japanese girls sing?
J-pop?
J-pop, and then you got K-pop. Okay, so there's some of that happens, don't get me wrong. But I think it would have been interesting to just go by genre. Like this band focuses on heavy metal, and you go to cities where you want, maybe this is a city that wants more country, or more heavy metal, or more pop. And if you have a band that plays more of that style of music, you can get bonus points. Now, every city, you could pretty much play almost any style of music, but it would affect the audience size.
Oh, yeah.
So when you go to certain parts of the country, they're going to be like a certain genre more than others.
True.
So it's interesting that they focus on species, but not genre and music.
Maybe.
But it's a neutral.
Yeah.
Okay. No two-player mode is a minus. So why is this game 3 to 6? You'll see in our playthrough that I did come up with a variant for 2 players, and it does work.
It works really well.
And we'll play with 2 players. But what they could have done, and again, they're a new manufacturer. You could have had a 2-player board where you flip this over. There's nothing on the back of this where they could have had a 2-player board. What I did is, when you look at the playthrough, I took out 1 city of each species, and I just modified some of the rules, and I think it worked.
I think it did.
Now, we haven't played this with 3, 4, 5, or 6 players, so we don't know, does a game take too long with 6 players?
Oh, gosh.
I know you do play with less pieces, so there is a chart here.
Oh, how many pieces to use?
Yeah, I'll show you real quick.
Oh, that's good.
So that means it does account for that. You're not going to play with all 14 Tor tokens.
Oh, I see.
You'll play with 10.
Yeah.
But see, that's 60 pieces.
Oof, still a lot of pieces.
With 6 players, that's 60 turns, whereas 3 players, you're going to have 42 turns.
Yeah.
So I bet you the game is going to take a lot longer with 6 players. I don't think it's going to take 45 minutes. But my complaint is they could have had a 2-player mode with a different map for 2 players. And maybe it could have worked for 3 players too, and you have a different map for 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, there you go.
So there are some rule book issues.
Oh.
When you look at the rule book, it doesn't tell you the object of the game right away. I had no idea when I was reading this, what am I supposed to be doing? You'd actually have to look at the back of the box first.
Oh, gosh.
Okay? And what if you didn't read the back of the box? And then there's just the setup rules here, how you set it up. You don't find out what's happening on this picture, in terms of context, until you get onto this page. And then there's some things that are buried, okay? But other than that, for an experienced hobby gamer, no problem. I was able to play it correctly. But the biggest thing that I was surprised about, I had no idea what the object of the game was. That needs to be at the very front.
Oh, yeah.
So for somebody who's not an experienced gamer,
They'll have a hard time.
it's neutral for me because it's not a deal breaker. Somebody will be able to, you'll be able to, even if someone who's motivated enough will be able to learn it. Someone who's not used to playing these type of games will probably have to watch a video. But for hobbyists, we'll get through it. It's no big deal. I was just surprised at what was missing.
I see.
All right, so let's take a look now at our review.
Okay. I mean, our rating?
Our rating, yeah.
Oh, you only said good, huh?
And I'll explain that in a minute. So tell me why you said 8. Very good.
I really had a lot of fun with it. I'm not going to lie. I was like picturing David and my boys. I was like playing them, and they were like going around on tour and everything. So in my head, I was like kind of playing the boys. So that's kind of, it made it kind of, made it fun.
But so you're saying you suggested, so so obviously it's staying in our collection because we both gave it an 8 and a 7, okay? So you're at night or during the day, you're going to say, hey, let's play TrollFest.
If I'm not too tired, I'd probably I probably would say, hey, we should play that game. And I have to admit, I may not remember the name of it, but I could describe it to him and he would know exactly what I mean. But yeah, I really did enjoy it. I like, set collection games, and I like that this one isn't, it's not a serious game. It's a fun, silly game, and I can handle it pretty well. I do have to admit that there are some cards that are a little confusing for me, so I do need David's guidance of helping me comprehend what I'm reading. But for the most part, I mean, obviously I can do it by myself. I am an adult. I just have a cognitive disability, so I can't understand everything all the time.
Yeah, but once it's explained to you, you can understand it.
So yeah, I did enjoy it. I did like it, and I did. I'm not going to say if I won or lost. You have to watch the playthrough. But yeah, I think it's fun.
Okay, so I'll be willing to play if Julie suggested. I don't know how often it would hit the table. Maybe we want to show different people with our sons, or this is a game you could bring out. Like, hey, have you tried this game? That's probably when I would bring it out. The reason why it's not higher for me is because it lacks official 2-player rules.
Ah.
Okay, and as a musician, and again, I've done Rush tribute band, I've done Ozzy Osbourne tribute band, Van Halen tribute band. I've been playing, for 33 years, and my sons have been playing since they were 10 and 12. And again, that's one reason why we're here. I would have liked to have had more focus on the musician part. Like I said, the genres of music, or the things that happen to bands, like kind of Spinal Tap-ish, okay? This is musician light. You get there is a theme here, but they focused on fantasy, okay, because fantasy is a popular thing.
Oh.
And I'm not saying they have to make it realistic, but if you are going to use fantasy, you could have had more fun with the fantasy part and the musician part and combined them. So, for instance, there's the part where there's the rumor that who's this guitar player for Rolling Stones?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I can picture him. I just don't remember his name.
Johnny Depp imitated him.
Oh, yes. I know exactly who you're talking.
There's a rumor that he actually did blood transfusions when he was doing lots of drugs.
What?
Oh, yeah. That he basically switched out his whole blood.
Get out of town.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm trying to remember his name. It'll come to me after this video. But you could have played up on that on the vampire thing.
That would have been cool.
I mean, with Led Zeppelin, there's so many things they did. And them doing Viking music like Immigrant Song, you could have made the Dwarves more Led Zeppelin-like. There's so many things you could have done.
That's a good point.
If somebody was a musician that was doing, more of a hardcore musician, heck, he's even doing King Diamond, you could have made him a vampire. He's sung about vampires. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. Death metal. There's so many things you could have done that was a missed opportunity, I think, that you could have marketed this then to not only people who like fantasy games like you, who may not have gotten all the jokes. I mean, there's so many things you could. It's just amazing. Like the guy from Motorhead.
Oh, I know that guy. Squimmy?
Lemmy. Or having Ozzy.
Sorry, Lemmy. Rest in peace.
Yeah, or Ozzy with biting the head off a bat. I mean, it's just.
You're right, though. I didn't even think of that.
That you could have fit in a fantasy theme and did that. So that's why it's a 7. This could have been much higher for me if you would have stuck that in there.
Well, you could pretend. That's kind of.
No,
I use my imagination.
I mean, just let me look at bands like Iron Maiden and Priest. All the mythology they have, Megadeth. All the mascots that they have.
Oh, Eddie.
Yeah. And then it would have been interesting to have, if you do the boy bands from the 90s, and you imagine having a boy band in with a metal band. That would have been kind of fun to do that.
That would have been kind of fun.
But because it's different species, it's not there.
Oh.
Imagine you'd have a pretty boy in a metal band.
That would be fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's missed opportunities.
Well, maybe they can do what do you call it?
A second printing?
Yeah, and then, they could put that stuff in there.
This printing would have to do well enough, and then would there be enough demand?
Oh.
But they're going to know, how many copies would this sell, and if it's selling well in this version, or if they come up a reskin, if they actually do a more hardcore version, where you could still have fantasy, but you do a lot more references to things that have happened. I think it'd be
funny as heck. Yeah.
I agree. So that's why I gave a 7.
Now you know. Well,
Right.
thank you so much, you guys, for watching this. I hope we were able to help you one way or another decide if you want to get this. And if you haven't seen our How to Play and Playthrough, please do take a look at that. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
No, it's Mick Jagger, but who's the guitarist again?
I don't know.
Gosh, it's escaping me.
I don't know. I can picture my I don't know what his name
Heck, you
is.
kind of made fun of the fact that you have the drummers die. So many drummers have died and singers have died, where you play a card and you lose a musician.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Okay, anyway.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye.